This is CTV News with Me Jung Lee and Scott Roberts.
Breaking news tonight as we are learning the unprecedented BC storm that triggered widespread flooding and numerous landslides has now turned deadly.
Officials say multiple vehicles were swept off the road in this mudslide south of Lillooet on Highway 99. And tonight, the province confirms that one woman has been killed and 2 people are still missing.
Meanwhile, new video is providing more insight into the sheer destruction caused in many parts of the province. These images showing the Coquihalla Highway in complete ruins as water has washed away lanes and bridge decks in multiple locations, cutting off parts of the interior from the lower mainland.
Highway 1 has also been shut down just east of Abbotsford as water has completely covered BC's busiest roadway.
Rescue operations continued all day for people trapped by floodwaters, some taken to safety by helicopters and others by boat, with so many roads impassable.
And new evacuations have also been ordered in addition to the entire community of Merritt. Thousands are now out of their homes province-wide, some still sleeping in their vehicles, and many stranded far away from their homes, unsure when they can go back.
Good evening. We have extensive coverage on the landslides and flooding tonight. A lot of information to get to, but we start with the confirmation of one person killed in a mudslide with 2 people still unaccounted for.
This happened on Highway 99 between Pemberton and Lillooet. Shannon Patterson has more on the death and a couple who barely escaped that slide caused by the storm of the century.
It was really scary.
The photos on their phone, a reminder of how close Melissa and Dave Medeiros came to being swallowed up in a massive mudslide south of Lillooet.
It was really surreal. Kind of feels like describing a movie at this point. It doesn't really feel like describing real life.
The Vancouver couple was heading home from Kamloops Monday afternoon.
Every route was closed except for Highway 99. We decided we had to go with it and take that route.
Traffic suddenly stopped for a small mudslide on the highway.
At that point, I got out because I wanted to go see how big this mud flow that we were blocked by.
Melissa remained in the car as her husband walked out of sight.
I hear this cracking sound and I turn around and the forest is just like moving and coming down maybe like 30 feet behind me.
I was just kind of frozen for a minute, and then I heard other people start yelling, and then it just clicked that I don't know where my wife is. So I ran as fast as I could back to the car, and luckily I saw my wife honking and just the car pin driving as fast as she could away from that thing.
They managed to avoid the river of mud and debris, but saw several smashed and buried cars off the side of the highway.
There was a off-duty firefighter who really got everybody organized and got everybody gathering chainsaws and shovels and ropes and doing everything that they could to go in and help get these people out of their vehicles. And so there were a few people who came out of their vehicles. One of them looked pretty bloody and knocked up.
But not everyone made it out alive. The body of a woman from the lower mainland has been found in the slide.
Tragic. Deepest condolences to the family. A simple drive home gone bad for sure. You know, what more can you say? It's just a tragic event.
I'm also aware of concerns that there may be additional victims in the mudslide near Lillooet. Search and rescue specialists are conducting significant work in this area, and the RCMP will continue to remain involved in these searches.
This is the only road connecting Lillooet to Pemberton, Whistler, and Metro Vancouver. Until it reopens, the community has essentially been cut off.
The Medeiroses are thankful they were able to escape with their lives.
Very happy, very lucky to be alive, very, very happy, and lucky that my wife is still here and wasn't caught in it.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News, Pemberton.
And the storm having a serious impact in the Fraser Valley as well. CTV's David Malko is live in Chilliwack, which is completely cut off from the rest of the province. David, what's the situation on the ground there?
Yeah, cut off on the east, I should say, towards Hope, and on the west towards Abbotsford here. The evacuation orders, by the way, both in Abbotsford and here in Chilliwack, continuing to rise. About 2,200 homes, so 8,000 people, somewhere in there, 6,000 to 8,000 people in Yarrow, in Sumas Prairie, under evacuation order right now as we speak. Despite those orders, despite the very real risk to life and livelihood, Mi Jung, some families like the Mulders say they're just not ready to go.
From above, Ed Mulder's farm looks like it's about to be swallowed. On the ground, he points out the source of his troubles.
If it breaks, that dike breaks, then we're hooped. If it holds, we'll be fine.
Why stay? Help me understand.
I guess it's just part of being a farmer.
Because the Mulders have been here since '94, you see, on this vast plain that acts like a giant drain.
Our field would normally be potatoes, and yeah, this water right now, it's filled up.
Inside these barns, 15,000 egg-laying hens, with just inches to go between newly born lakes and disaster.
Everything we do is based on keeping them healthy and happy, and to walk away from it, it's tough.
So this one here is yesterday, and that's this morning.
His neighbors' homes already turned into islands. These herds set free to seek drier ground. The family truck packed with nearly nothing.
What's in there?
Yet everything.
Pictures, photo albums, change of clothes.
That's everything.
It's everything that matters. This is an act of God. It is what it is. We see it on the news all the time in other places in the world, and this time it's our turn. That's all.
Incredible pictures there, David. You can hear the emotion in Ed's voice. You just got off the phone with him. What did he tell you?
You know, they were feeling optimistic most of the day. He and his wife Hester, their 21-year-old son Jake, their two daughters who'd evacuated. But he said, David, look, we were there, the sun was going down. I could see at the road toward the edge of the fields, the water had risen and was starting to pour over the top. He said it would be maybe a half hour, an hour before the property was inundated. So they got out of there. I said to him, good luck and Godspeed. One story, one family, one of thousands tonight, Mi Jung, just hoping against hope.
This is CTV News with Mi Jung Lee and Scott Roberts.
As of noon today, the government of BC is declaring a state of emergency. The order will preserve basic access to services and supplies for communities across the province.
Breaking news tonight as the Premier makes that declaration, a state of emergency now in effect in BC. John Horgan also bracing us for more bad news, that additional fatalities are expected.
3 people are now missing, believed to be swept away in the landslide between Pemberton and Lillooet that's already claimed 1 life.
We are also learning that thousands of animals have been killed in the floods.
The Prime Minister confirming late today hundreds of military personnel are being sent to BC to assist in the cleanup.
And we're getting more insight into the supply chain crisis with the Coquihalla destroyed in multiple locations as some rail lines have also collapsed, sending train cars tumbling several meters to the ground.
Good evening. The province now has the power to restrict travel, take action on gouging, and limit the amount of supplies people can buy in a panic.
The state of emergency declaration comes as anxiety over unprecedented flooding heightens.
CTV's David Mulco is live once again for us in Chilliwack at the airport that's serving as a lifeline, David, for tens of thousands of people there. What is the latest?
You know, and guys, not to diminish the loss of life or livelihoods with dozens or hundreds of homes and farms, I should say, in the Sumas Prairie likely underwater, but we are starting to get a little sliver of optimism here. Families starting to reconnect, which is why this tiny stretch of tarmac that's normally quiet and is still active tonight has become a symbol of hope.
As one chopper lands and another takes off. Joe and Jennifer Pinder are grateful they've made it this far.
Happy to be home. We're almost home. I miss my kids.
Escaping a slide Sunday by just a few meters, then taken in by strangers, for which they're simply thankful.
So many of the communities opened up their homes to not just us, but several other people.
It's also sheer volunteer power that may have saved the Sumas Prairie, building a dam overnight to keep the pumps going. Wes McCauley, one of many.
300 people just materialize because of a Facebook group, get there, move the sandbags into place, and basically, save the station.
On Wednesday, the team from North Shore Rescue back up, looking for signs of life. After a night of touch and go rescues, Jordan Jongamba saved from the brink by boat.
This is unbelievable. I was planning to leave, getting all my stuff together, and it's like a waterfall just happened.
While back at the airport, critical hospital supplies are coming in. Patients are being helped out, as it seems everyone who knows how to fly, lift, carry, or maybe just hug is offering everything they can.
I'd like to do a big thank you to everybody up there. I mean, it's just tremendous, tremendous.
It's true.
Absolutely tremendous, and that is what we're hearing from everybody, from the farmers that are out of their homes, from the folks here, the ordinary men and women, from the volunteers out there. This is a true team effort. I want to bring up some photos, though, that I just got from a farmer, a chicken farmer in Sumas Prairie. His name's Ed Mulder. We profiled him last night. He just sent me these photos. This was his farm today, under what he thinks is 6 to 8 feet of water, 15,000 chickens, I should say, egg-laying hens in those barns. That's his house there. That's where he's been since 1994. Wasn't able to get home today. He's going to try tomorrow. Things aren't looking good, he said, but we're going to get through this together. Scott, Mijung.
That is the way to look at it tonight. Thanks very much, David, in Chilliwack again tonight. Well, more now on the state of emergency declared by the Premier and the impact that will have on communities ravaged by flooding. CTV's Bitter Sugin reports.
From the air, the devastation is gutting. Homes and livelihoods underwater, thousands forced from their homes, at least one person dead.
Sadly, we expect to confirm even more fatalities in the coming days.
Along with the impact on people, some communities are cut off from getting essentials.
Already strained supply lines are at risk of greater disruption. Therefore, as of noon today, the government of BC is declaring a state of emergency.
Parts of the Coquihalla destroyed. Nearly every major highway has washouts. The emergency powers allow the province to bring in travel restrictions as well as crack down on gouging and hoarding.
This is not the time for travel for leisure purposes. Our transportation infrastructure is crippled, and we need to ensure that it comes back online as quickly as possible.
Train service in and out of Vancouver derailed. This is in the Fraser Canyon near Highway 1. BC is requesting military help to get goods moving and to evacuate people out of danger.
I can confirm that there are hundreds of Canadian Armed Forces members currently headed to British Columbia to help with everything from supplies to evacuation to whatever is needed. There are thousands more on standby.
Hundreds of farms are thought to be underwater. The full extent of the damage to the economy, unknown.
BC, for dairy, we're part of the Western Milk Pool, and we're also part of a national scheme, and so we won't run out of food.
With flood insurance not common in many regions, Premier John Horgan says climate change means it's time to rethink support programs, hinting financial help may be on the way.
There's not a person that hasn't been affected or will not be affected by the events of this past weekend.
Binder Sugin, CTV News, Victoria.
The search is on tonight for 3 people missing in the massive mudslide on Highway 99 just south of Lillooet. The body of one woman has been recovered. As CTV Shannon Patterson reports, for survivors who were meters away from being crushed by the torrent, there's shock, sadness, and gratitude.
When this deadly mudslide roared down the hill toward Highway 99 south of Lillooet.
It was just like a tsunami of trees and stones and mud, and it just came down so quickly.
Maple Ridge business owner Kathy Rennie, her husband and 9-year-old son had been driving home from their cabin.
So we were still in our truck just kind of processing what just happened, and people just started running, asking for shovels and anything to dig, chainsaws, whatever. So my husband grabbed our chainsaw.
Rennie, who has first aid training, began tending to the wounded.
I was asking the ones that I had taken out, like, is there anybody else with you? Did you see any other cars? How many cars should we be looking for? How many people should we be looking for?
When she learned the body of a woman from the Lower Mainland was found in the slide.
Just cried. It's just, I can't imagine.
Search crews are still looking for 3 other people.
There are persons missing. Searches are underway. We're hopeful for the best, but as days go by, hope diminishes.
Rennie treated the wife and mother of one of the people still missing.
He wasn't in the car. They were out of the car. His wife jumped in. He shoved his mom in the car, and then the landslide hit.
She spoke to the man's family on Tuesday night.
The brother-in-law said that they do want to talk to me, but obviously are just taking some time and hoping for some closure one way or the other. But I don't know. I'm optimistic and hopeful that they'll find him.
The work is very complex. The geotechnical analysis of the area is being conducted, and it has to be deemed safe in order for the emergency specialists to gain access to the search site.
This is obviously a very challenging and difficult situation, and a very tragic situation.
Rennie knows it could easily have been her family swallowed up by the slide.
It's emotional. But wasn't our time, wasn't our day, wasn't the way we were going to go. So I'm thankful, for sure.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News.
To breaking news now, Highway 7 has reopened to allow for hundreds of people stranded in hope to get back to the Lower Mainland. But the reopening is temporary, and it will be a long process to repair damage to all of those highways. CTV's Alyssa Tebow is on this for us tonight. But Alyssa, let's start with the Coquihalla, because as we know, it is an absolute disaster.
Oh, yeah, Scott, I mean, just take a look at these images here. This is the kind of damage that you expect to see after a major earthquake. This is Highway 5, the Coquihalla, a major connection between the Lower Mainland and the interior, absolutely snapped in two. A major highway, no match for Mother Nature. When an atmospheric river tore through BC, the flooding powerful enough to break a road in half. This is the Coquihalla south of Merritt. Bridges torn from the earth and a road simply washed away. In another section, mere kilometres away, crews pull debris from the flooded river, remnants of a road now non-existent. With access to roads cut off, assessment teams are being flown in and out, now putting together repair plans with the main focus
to re-establish connections from the Lower Mainland to the interior and the north parts of the province.
With some progress, Highway 7, north side of the Fraser River, has a single lane open for emergency use west of Agassiz.
This is for people who have urgent needs, people who need to move livestock, people who need to move additional pump equipment to the Sumas Prairie area. Please still avoid that area if your travel is not absolutely essential.
And it's looking positive for Highway 3. The road from Hope to Princeton could reopen to emergency vehicles as early as this weekend.
Of all the major routes, Highway 3 has the least capacity and it's the most challenging. It's the least preferred route of all the three, but certainly it's something.
Repair timelines for damage of this magnitude are unknown. Engineers will need to complete damage assessments first. The Premier says the government is fast-tracking contracts and tenders.
I'm very confident that the people who built British Columbia will be able to rebuild it as quickly as is safe to do so.
We start with breaking news and a race against time to stop the Sumas Prairie from turning into a lake once again.
The city of Abbotsford confirming less than 2 hours ago several homes may need to be destroyed to shore up a levee and prevent even more water from pouring into the area.
Nafisa Karim is following this troubling development in the Breaking News Center. Nafisa, what do we know?
Well, Mijong Scott, in a late news conference today, Abbotsford Mayor Henry Braun describing a dire situation. The dike that protects the Sumas Prairie has has been breached. They have to build a levee as soon as possible, even if it means expropriating people's homes in the process. The biggest breach in the dike is approximately 100 meters long. Water is just flowing into the Sumas, filling it up like the lake that it once was before it was drained. Ron says they have to stop the water as soon as possible. They plan to start building a 2.5-kilometer dike that will run alongside Highway 1 starting tomorrow morning with help from the Army. When asked how many homeowners might potentially lose their homes, well, this is what the mayor said.
I think between 6 and 12. Because I sense you're looking for a number, so I don't want somebody to think there's 50 houses there. One house is too much. And if it was my house, I'd be concerned too. But there is not many options here.
He says the time now is the biggest challenge, and of course rain. They plan to start this tomorrow morning, and the province will be speaking to affected property owners as soon as possible because in some cases they weren't aware of this plan until now. Also, a boil watery advisory has been issued for just the Sumas Prairie, and it is expected to be in place for several days. Mijang, Scott?
The situation definitely changing rapidly. Thank you, Nafisa.
And we are learning more about the scale of this disaster that has hit our province. And as Mijang just mentioned, continues to develop by the hour. 4 people are now missing, all believed to have been swept away by that landslide near Lillooet.
And at this hour, 17,000 people remain out of their homes. Many of them live in the Fraser Valley, where neighbors are helping neighbors salvage what they can.
And CTV's David Molko is live once again for us tonight in Chilliwack. David, you hitched a ride with a jet boat driver today who's been helping a lot of people out there. What did you see?
Yeah, John Reeves is 23 years old. He's a man of few words. He's a guy with a big heart. He runs a tire shop normally, but now he's a jet boat pilot. He's been out every day since the flood waters rose, rescuing first people, then livestock, and now pets. Here's just a snapshot of our time out on the prairie today.
Yeah, we're going. Okay, let's go. You got his phone pop? Yeah. Here, I'll keep the cat. If you want to get the dog in there, I'll grab the cat for you.
And so you see it there, the dogs, Neo and Sullivan, the cat, Mystic. He's been out. This is what it's been like every day. He says he's got a laundry list of requests from folks just looking for help, looking to get in. We were there with Sierra Burrow. She lives on the prairie. She was trying to get back to her house, trying to get some laptops and photo albums. It was too dangerous. The power was still on in the house upstairs. The bottom level was flooded. So you get a sense of that. The 3 guys in the rowboat, they're not search and rescue guys. I'm sorry, outboard border there. They describe themselves as just ordinary guys. Theo and Sean there just trying to lend a hand, trying to do what they can on the prairie. I have to say, as we were out there, we could sense that the waters had started to rise. This was the eastern end, and you can really just sense the incredible devastation across the prairies. Things floating, livestock swimming in the distance, and it's just this odd juxtaposition of what used to be people's homes, what used to be people's livelihoods, I should say, now just turned into a giant lake. We'll have much more of the story coming up tomorrow on CTV News.
More devastating images out of Sumas Prairie tonight. Thanks so much for your coverage on this, David.
More than 100 soldiers are expected to be on the ground in BC tonight as the federal government sends help.
One highway has reopened to essential travel, and as CTV's Binder Sedgman reports, there is some progress on some fronts, but the emergency is ongoing.
Now under a blanket of snow, waters in Merritt receding enough to let residents back in to get loved ones, pets, or essentials.
And if we don't get in to get his medication, then I got like a grand mal seizure coming on. And my friend here, she's got her diabetic medication.
One bridge washed out. The town's water and river remain compromised, and no one can say when people might get back home.
I do know that last night public works crews pulled more than 2 dump truck loads of silt and debris and boulders out of our main sewage line.
In Abbotsford, in the Sumas Prairie, the situation is dire with more rain on the way. Across the province, an estimated 17,000 people are out of their homes. 1,000 stranded travelers got home from Hope last night, a few hundred by train, others driving newly reopened Highway 7.
4 days I've been waiting in Hope.
Trucks are now able to take goods to Vancouver.
Right now, Highway 7 is, at this hour, opened to 1-lane, single alternating traffic.
On Highway 3, work is underway and it could reopen by the weekend. Highway 99 could see limited travel in a few days' time. The Coquihalla will take much longer.
Initial damage assessments have been completed, and as Minister Fleming stated previously, we can confirm temporary repairs are going to take months.
In Lillooet, where one person died, the investigation continues.
We can also confirm that we are now dealing with 4 missing person reports related to that specific area and the slide.
The ministers say they're also taking action to secure more gas from Alberta or the United States after long lineups in several cities.
As British Columbians and as Canadians, we stick together. I'm going to come out of this. I'm going to build a stronger, better province and a stronger and better country.
The deputy premier says travel restrictions are coming for non-essential trips, and price gouging and panic buying could also be addressed. Vinder Sajjan, CTV News, Victoria.
As mentioned, the federal government is ramping up the military response and has also announced the Coast Guard will help with another major impact from this week's deadly storm. CTV's Ben Mildred joins us live with more. Ben, what will the Coast Guard be doing now?
Mijung, we've all seen the runaway barge lodged on Sunset Beach. Well, it turns out that's not the only vessel to run aground on the coast during the storm, and many others have also sunk or are simply drifting in the ocean. The Coast Guard will monitor the next attempted removal of the barge, set for high tide on Sunday. It is also responding to those other vessels that came loose or were disabled in the storm. There have been 22 reports so far. As for additional troops, a reconnaissance team is here now surveying damage and determining priorities. 240 more soldiers are on standby in Edmonton, ready to convoy into BC when they determine which route is best to get them into areas where they're needed.
Yesterday, we moved a reconnaissance party into the Provincial Emergency Operations Center in Surrey. And working with the local and provincial authorities there, we are determining the tasks, locations, and capabilities necessary to support local and provincial authorities.
The troops on their way to BC are part of a rapid response unit. The defense minister says thousands more are available if needed. The initial deployment for the military helping people and communities impacted by the flooding and mudslides is set for 30 days, but that could be extended if the province makes the request. Mijung?
Thank you, Ben.
More now on the Sumas Prairie and the urgency tonight to try to help farmers save their livestock. Thousands of animals have already died and more are currently at risk. CTV's Michelle Bernaro is live in Abbotsford with more on the desperate efforts underway. Michelle.
Yeah, the flashing lights here behind that is the evacuation zone, and work continues around the clock to try and save the animals and help the farmers.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to my office. This is what we're up against today.
The hours are long, the work unpaid, but Kevin Gorecki is among the volunteers trying to help desperate farmers get water to their herds on the flood-devastated Sumas Prairie.
We've got 7 dairy farms that we have to fill up yet.
The biggest problem, he says, is access.
In the northeast end of the prairie, the water's actually rising. And a couple of the farms that we were in this morning, we won't be able to get back into.
The Abbotsford resident says it's been an emotional few days.
Walking into Cheryl's barn and looking at all the cows that we had just brought water into last night, and none of them would be alive. So I feel pretty good about that.
This video showing a complicated rescue of 50 calves Thursday by volunteers on Sumas Prairie. Winds and cold water making things more difficult. Farmers and volunteers continue to move cattle to safer locations by whatever means they can, using boats, sometimes even jet skis, and then loading the frightened animals into awaiting trailers. Thousands of cattle have been brought to higher ground, and dairy farmers not affected by flooding have taken them in. Some of them ended up at this farm in Agassiz.
Farmers with their pickup trucks and their trailers, you know, they raced out to Sumas Prairie and loaded up the animals 8 to 10 at a time and got them to all the different farms here in Chilliwack and Agassiz that had room or made room.
Abbotsford's mayor says farmers are devastated, many refusing to leave their properties despite evacuation orders.
These farms are second, third, maybe even fourth generation farmers, and they love their cattle, they love their land. They don't want to move. I get that.
But first responders are urging people to get out as the prairie faces unprecedented flooding. There are signs of hope here tonight. Within the last hour, the first permits were issued to allow feed trucks into that evacuation zone. We're also hearing from people on the inside that at least in some areas, there is water back on tonight. We saw milk trucks leaving this area. That's good news because we have heard of many farmers having to dump their milk. Now, it is a long road ahead, however. I spoke to one farmer today who said he was able to get a number of his calves rescued, moved out of the evacuation zone, but he also said that he lost a number of cattle. Scott?
All right, Michelle Bernero on the agricultural crisis tonight. Thank you, Michelle.